Another wild weekend, and this one is extra spicy because it's after the international break, and we have, of course, so much to discuss, including the Premier League, where Liverpool keep on rolling, and some other teams, including yours truly's and Jimmy Conrad's does not. We also go to Serie A and La Liga and much, much more. Guess what? I'm happy because the band is back together again. Heath Pearce, Jimmy Conrad, myself, Luis Miguel Echegaray. Que Golazo weekend recap begins right now. Hey, everybody, welcome to Que Golazo Weekend Recap. Oh, my goodness, it's been a while. Before I get into all the call to actions, I wanted to welcome you all. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, we are live. And please, if you have a question or comment, make sure that you do it right now. We want to answer. We want to talk to you in this episode, of course. So make sure that you follow us and watch us as well right here. But we're on Que Golazo Pod Twitter as well. Heath Pearce, how are you, bud?
I'm doing good. I am doing well. It's great to have that energy back. We've missed you, man. Right when we popped on today, I was like, man, I'm used to this on a much more regular flow, but obviously international break. Didn't get a chance to chat with you all the time. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. And Jimmy Conrad, always good to see you, brother. How are you?
Great to see you. I know that we're suffering together. We had big leads. Well, at least a lead against our favorite teams did in the Premier League, and they ended up losing. So high five to you, Luis.
An air high five, buddy. An air. Yeah, we are telling. And then Heath is smiling because his team didn't even play yet. It's a Monday game as well.
I will say that Jimmy wore his Newcastle shirt, so I brought this little espresso glass for anybody that's watching this on video. That's actually an Arab man in a keffiyeh, which is the new when they wear the traditional head gear in the Middle East. So I'm taking a shot of somebody wearing that right now, an espresso shot, Jimmy, just because I see a lot of people in Jimmy's stadium wearing this special outfit now.
Yeah, which I don't love, by the way, but we can get into it, of course. But there is definitely a lot to discuss, as you said, Heath, of course, with Newcastle, and we'll begin there in the Premier League in a second. But before I do that, everybody, I just want to salute Jimmy Conrad and Heath Pearce on another fantastic international window. Y'all killed it. Y'all had some good people. Drake Cordero was here. We saw Vasquez. You had a good time, Jimmy. Was it as much fun as it usually is with you and Heath?
Yeah, it's fun, but it's a bit of a roller coaster emotionally. I think that Heath and I are tied to the U.S. men's national team in a way that we can't be tied to anything else, just because we've lived the experience as players, and now obviously we want them to have as much success as possible and stand on our shoulders. I want all these players to be 10 times as good as I ever was, and they're pretty much there. But now I want to see them succeed, so it's tough when I see them struggle, when they could maybe do a couple different things, and maybe that's more Berhalter than the players. But yeah, there's a lot to discuss, and I assume it's going to continue to be a roller coaster. So buckle up, everybody.
Heath, are you buckled up? Are you ready as well for November?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you come out of the end of it and you realize that you're going back into the dramatics of club soccer too. So after the international break, I realized, like, man, good thing football's done for a bit. And then you realize, like, no, in 2 days, the club stuff begins again. And now we've got to track all these players, see how they're doing, see if they're healthy, see if they're in good form, coming back into the November stuff. So overall, I'm excited. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun so far.
It's been a lot of fun. And by the way, as you may or may not know, I'm Peruvian, so I just wanted to, just basically jump off a building. But apart from that, it was great. Hey, by the way, everybody, make sure that you keep on asking those questions and those comments as well. Some of you are going to be listening as well in podcast form. That's very nice of you. Thank you. And you know what's even nicer? To subscribe to the Que Golazo podcast, wherever you get your pods, and take a minute to just leave us a glowing rating review. By the way, you can do that while you listen. It's amazing. You can multitask. All right. So, but thank you, everybody.
Do it in all caps as well. Like really mean it with exclamation points.
And an emoji as well, like a heart emoji, like if you're allowed to do that. But anyway, Heath Pearce, Jimmy Conrad, let's begin the weekend recap. We begin, of course, in the Premier League. And yes, Jimmy Conrad, we will begin at St. James's Park. It was obviously, we knew that the energy was going to be there. We knew that the fans were going to be loud, as you may know, of course, under new majority Saudi Arabian ownership. This is now a new story that is developing in Newcastle. However, the result remains as Tottenham wins 3-2 against Newcastle. So Newcastle remains without a win in the Premier League. They remain in the bottom three as well. By the way, as well as Norwich and Burnley, this is, I think, the second time in Premier League history where at this point in the season, three teams have not gotten a a win so far. And by the way, in that time, I have to go back and check the season, but in that time, 2 of those 3 got relegated. One of them survived. So we'll see what happens there. But aside from that, everybody, it was Steve Bruce's 1000th game. And by the way, we also obviously have to discuss the fact that the game was halted due to a supporter in the stands having a cardiac arrest. And just amazing how everybody came together. The fans were pleading the players to signal the referee to stop. Sergio Reguilon obviously alerted the referee, Oliver Skip as well, and Eric Dyer grabbed a defibrillator or pointed for them to go over. So we believe that he was stabilized or she was stabilized. I'm not sure, male or female, maybe somebody can guarantee that, but they're in the hospital and they're now stabilized. This is the Newcastle tweet. The supporter who was in need of urgent medical assistance has been stabilized and is on their way to the hospital. And I believe in hospital itself as well was responsive, etc. So from that perspective, it was great. But anyway, let's focus on the game itself, Jimmy, and Newcastle as they lose 3-2 to Tottenham. Harry Kane got a goal finally, and Son as well, etc. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, you meant all those stats, didn't win a game, haven't won a game since the last day of the last season, and blah, 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 blah. Listen, we got money to solve problems, man. We're just swimming in money. We're Scrooge McDuck, baby. We got to just swim in all of our gold, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to solve problems. You go tell me those other teams that got relegated, if they have the same issue with new owners that have billions of dollars. They don't. So, you know what? We're going to figure it out. Maybe. That's a strong maybe in there. And I was excited for the first 15 minutes. That energy that we saw from the team, the excitement that you could tell they were building off of the energy and the excitement of the new owners. And obviously, I think in some capacity, these players have something to prove because I don't think Steve Bruce is going to be managing them much longer. So it's whoever they're trying to impress is going to be the next manager. And now there's just a different type of buzz around the team. And then, of course, Ndombele said, you know what? I'm going to score a banger of a goal. I'm going to shut you up. And then we're going to score another one and then another one right before halftime. And you guys are going to go back to being Newcastle. And that was very humbling. But for 15 minutes, it was all roses. And I was feeling a feeling I haven't felt in a long time wearing a Newcastle kit. So I'll take it. Maybe next game we can get to 20 minutes of feeling good instead of.
I wanted to say 2 things real quick. Not to jump back to what had happened in the stands, but I think obviously going back to the summer, I think one of the things that the positives that came out of such a potential tragic incident with, well, I guess it was tragic with Christian Eriksen was the awareness of what to do in these situations. Right, the whole world sort of came together to better educate everyone. I had a friend who's worked in medical sales. He actually sold those devices for the last 15 years of just saying the importance of these, of just having them in every gym and every workout place and every whatever. And there's books out there from Alberto Salazar, who had one on the Nike campus when he collapsed and things like that. I just think that there's a better awareness and education for all of us common people that aren't necessarily spending our times amongst in the athletic world or in the sort of elite kind of physical whatever world. So I thought that was kind of at least I think an education that came out of this summer. With regard to this game, by the way, I was thinking about this and I was trying to process in my mind, right, when Abramovich came in 2003, spent money after you have the Invincibles year and comes in and kind of immediate impact. I don't know if we are in an era where that can work as easily anymore, right? To come in and spend a bunch of money and get it right. Back then, it kind of caught everyone off guard. It was the first splash of big money into the Premier League. Now we've seen it with Manchester City, fresh blood, but now it's so convoluted. And then you add Liverpool to that conversation. You've got Chelsea. Yeah, you have Man United who can still spend, but they're on the outskirts of new spending. And I just wonder, what could Newcastle possibly do to build a team that will satisfy the now expectations of a blank check, right? It's only winning a trophy, right? You couldn't just become a Champions League club. Jimmy, you as a fan, would that be good enough to be a Champions League club? Or when somebody comes in like this that doesn't have the background, that doesn't come from sort of, I guess, the British football culture and local ownership, so to speak, it's a conglomerate coming in. Is it good enough to make the Champions League? Is it good enough to be fighting for a top 6? Or does this new demand come with trophies only?
No. I think there's got to be an evolution of it. I think it's taking steps to that. I mean, I'll even use the Liverpool model in Fenway Sports Group with Jurgen Klopp. once they found the right manager to kind of unlock some of the things, then they started to build piece by piece. Okay, we almost won the Champions League. We lost in the final, but we probably need a better goalkeeper. They got Allison, right? They needed a center back prior to that. They went and got Van Dijk. And when I look at Newcastle overall, I'm looking from those positions first, like the spine of the team. Yeah, we already have some guys. Callum Wilson's a serviceable Premier League player, scored today. He knows how to score goals in the league. Allan Maximin is super talented, right? You start to build around him.
Yeah, but Jimmy, it's still Newcastle versus Liverpool. Liverpool was still Liverpool on some level.
That's fair. And I think it's going to be hard because I don't know who wants to live in Newcastle. From what I understand, it's not the most desirable place to live in. So,
Jimmy Conrad.
I'm just saying that Chelsea live in London, right? Or Chelsea's in London. PSG's in Paris. I'm Manchester. I don't know. I mean, I've been to Manchester, and I get, there's pull to every city, and Newcastle's got that warmth too, to the people and the culture, but it just doesn't have that sex appeal that, like, say, a Madrid or a Barcelona or any of these places might have. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to see which player is going to sign first. What's going to be the first domino to fall? Is it the manager? I assume a manager is going to have to come in and then have to convince, because it's going to be. I think it's going to take 5 or 6 years.
Is it a big name?
As manager or player?
Like either one. Do you think one of them does it have to be?
I think the manager
project to kick off?
A manager has to be a big name as a manager.
Well, you said somebody already. Who do you think?
I think Frank Lampard feels somewhat reasonable because he's going to be some of a transition guy. You bring him in for a year or two and you let him transition. I actually thought he built a pretty good team at Chelsea. He added some pieces that are obviously having success now. So he's got team building. He seems okay. But knowing that whoever takes it first probably isn't going to have it for very long. I think it's whoever gets it second can really take what's been built and go from there. So you have to be really thoughtful about who you hire. Antonio Conte, he never stays very long at places. He could be somebody that you could consider. I really like Christophe Galtier. He already left. I mean, there's a ton of people that I like, but it's going to be a big challenge. None of them are
going to understand the Geordie accent, by the way. That's
there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot. But then from there, who do you sign? Do you go with the younger player like a Koundé, get him from Sevilla and start to build from the back and go forward? Or it's really interesting because you could go get a James Ward-Prowse, maybe from Southampton, or Franck Kessié. His contract's up soon. There's players you can go out and get and probably build a good team. But, but then what? So anyway, this goes on and on.
No. I like where you went to because I want to play a little game with everybody here. If you're watching on YouTube, let's do a little game for you guys commenting. If you think that it should be Frank Lampard, vote F. If you think it's C. For Conte, if you think it's Conte, vote C. And if you go for Christophe Galtier, go for G. So right now, F is killing it, I believe. F is killing it. And
well, that was just me. I just threw the Fs into our private group chat, spamming it just so everybody knows how I feel. I threw
F is killing it because Heath Pearce is just spamming us completely. By the way, Ilyas from Somalia, thank you so much for watching. Also is in the same trend as you, Jimmy Conrad, thinking St. Maximin obviously has to stay. And I think one of the big things about St. Maximin, by the way, was he wanted to see a vision. This was before all this happened. And I think this has solidified maybe the reason for him staying. Willock as well. Listen, here's the thing. I think to your point, Jimmy, it's going to be interesting to see what that first player is. Steve Bruce, I'll be surprised if he's here tomorrow, to be honest with you. So there's definitely going to be a change in manager. I just think like that first player, to your point, Jimmy, it's going to be crucial. Jimmy, by the way, Jimmy Gonzalez says Newcastle need God at this point.
Yeah, I agree. His name's Erling Haaland. Thank you, Jimmy Martinez. Jimmy Gonzalez. I appreciate you.
No, but Jimmy Gonzalez, Emiliano Martinez already plays for. He's fine. Money won't save them. Well, we will see what happens. Listen, Man City went through hell and back before they got bought out. Chelsea, I think to your point, Heath, completely changed the narrative of the Premier League. I think that began everything. Jay, agree with Heath. They can't get success just as quickly now because there are more players. Progress will be much slower, but it's almost guaranteed with money. But it's going to be like what, Heath, 3-4 year process, you think?
It's
I'd
hard.
Say 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's a hard starting point, right? Because you do have a few pieces that you can add to. But if you look at sort of who were the early ones of the Man City days, that was Aguero. It was what's his name, the French kid, Dzeko. I'm just trying to think through the early days. Crespo
City.
on the Chelsea side too.
Robinho?
Like
Was it
need a
Robinho
few-
their big first signing?
Robinho was one of the main ones. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like you need to get a few right, you get a few wrong, and then you need to have some momentum. But it's all like there's no love lost in the league now, right? Like we're talking about at least four teams.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you exactly what happened during the summer of 2009, right? The club went nuts, right? Spent like £100 million in that time, right? 2009. Gareth Barry came in, Roque Santa Cruz, Colo Toure, Emmanuel Adebayor, Carlos Tevez, Julian Lescott, right? And then obviously Mancini as well. So that was the foundation. So I see the similar thing here with Newcastle. You're not necessarily buying Haaland like in January, right? That's not going to happen. But build a foundation of like 3 players that will make this team stronger. And at least, listen, here's the number one thing. Stay in the Premier League, Newcastle. That's your first objective. Like there's nothing more else. If you're thinking win the Premier League, like you said, Jimmy, it's going to be a long, long process, Jimmy Conrad.
I just think then Big Sam Allardyce might be the choice here, fellas. He's got a good track record, almost like 95% of keeping teams up. That said, I mean, I again, you're echoing my sentiments of really thinking through and building more of a core and building around some players that maybe aren't at the wrong end of 30 or over on the wrong side of 30 years old, and trying to find guys that can really, Franck Kessié would be a 6 signing in my humble opinion. And if you started to add a couple of those pieces, and now people are paying attention to what you're doing, and you bring in that manager like a Mancini to kind of start to connect the dots, then I think you're going to miss some, as he says. Now, what I would add to this is the youth academy thing. Are they going to go the Chelsea route and just buy as many young players as possible and then loan them out all over the place? Man City does something very similar. They got to somehow make sure there's still an avenue for their young players, so you still have that connection to the area. And I hope that doesn't get lost in all of this, because you still see Liverpool put out a Trent Alexander-Arnold. They still see Liverpool put out a Harvey Elliott. Like there's still some levels, and they're trying to be well balanced. And I use them as the most recent example of kind of having this most recent success with an influx of some serious money. And so, it's interesting times, obviously. But again, I as much as I'm a Newcastle fan, I'm still cautiously optimistic that we're going to figure it out. And I think it's going to take 5 or 6 years to really get to a level where they're in the conversation for the top 4, every single season.
Yeah, because one fact, and I'm just going to end it with this. One fact remains. Before the takeover, they were 18th. After this weekend, they're 19th with no wins. That's just the truth. That's just the truth.
Thanks. Appreciate the fact.
Hey, listen, I'm about to talk about Villa in a second. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about, by the way, those who are going strong. Let's talk about the top 3. Des Norris, let's put that table on the screen as we keep talking about the Premier League. We began, of course, Saturday early morning with a Liverpool thrashing of Watford. Claudio Ranieri, I don't know, maybe he's thinking, maybe I should have stayed in Italy instead of doing what's going on here, because they really faced the wrath of Liverpool as they went nuts. 5-0. Manchester City won 2-0 against Burnley. It wasn't a 5-0 as it usually is in that game, but it was 2-0 to Manchester City. And Brentford, I thought, were very good. And it took a very good Edward Mendy to maintain anything here, as Chelsea won 1-0 against Brentford in that West London derby. Anything from that top 3, by the way, as we look in the Premier League. So basically, Chelsea are on top with 19 points, Liverpool with 18, Man City with 17. Heath, anything from that?
Yeah, just that how good, I haven't said the name Bobby Firmino in a while because of injuries and stuff, but just how, and I know Jurgen Klopp says he's his best player when he is fit and healthy, and you saw in his hat trick over the weekend, I think he had an assist as well. Just how good he is and how good that team is. Obviously not as much rotated as I would have expected as you had with the Man City side, who rotated quite a few players and were pretty comfortable in possession, 70+% possession, kind of start to finish. Not a wildly impressive game, but overall, again, my theme going into this weekend was very much about what do you do with all of the squad rotations? And we saw wildly different. Some played their best teams after an international break. Some rested everybody and rolled the dice. And it's just a very challenging weekend to come back from. But overall, it's great to see those 3 teams continuing to get those results coming back from a weekend where even if you're a manager, you don't know who you can actually roll out probably 48 hours before your game.
Yeah, I'd jump in and just say that Chelsea looks like they're surviving. I feel like that was a theme going into the international break, that they're doing just enough to get results. And that's a sign of a good team, right? You're still digging it out and figuring it out. And Brentford were very good and got to feel hard done by. They didn't at least get a draw on that one. But to your point, Mendy, they've only given up 3 goals all season. That's really impressive on a Chelsea standpoint. Man City, very professional performance on both sides of the ball. Fair play to them. Bernardo Silva actually looks very sharp right now in particular. And then with regard to Liverpool, they're the only team in the Premier League not to lose. And they have 3 draws, 5 wins and 3 draws. And the last 2 draws were against Man City, which we could argue they should have locked it down at 2-1. Obviously, a deflected goal changes that, makes it 2-2. Yeah. They could have won that game, right? And then you think about the Brentford game where they gave up the lead a couple times there. I mean, they're so close to really being unstoppable in so many different ways if they can just shore it up defensively. And they get to play against Manchester United this upcoming weekend after playing against Atletico Madrid.
Are they the best team in Europe, Jimmy?
They got to be considered for sure. And I think Mo Salah's got to be in there for currently the best player in Europe, along with Benzema and Lewandowski right now. But Mo Salah's on something fierce. He just seems to be enjoying what he's doing, and everything seems to be working out for him. And
is he the best player in the world, Jimmy?
I mean, currently it's hard to say otherwise. The guy has got the special sauce. He is really just, the game just looks easy. Everything he's trying to pull off is working. And I just don't think there's any sign of slowing down. My vote would be for Mo Salah right now, with all due respect to all the other competitors. If we're just looking at from the start of the season, you'd have to say that Mo Salah's got to be the top, if not one of the top 1 or 2.
Yeah. Heath?
Yeah, there was some controversy over the weekend that somebody put up a meme comparing Ronaldinho and Mo Salah.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Reposted over and over again. And people are going crazy about it right now. And obviously, most people are leaning towards saying, hey, take this down. This doesn't even deserve to be up. But you just look at Mo Salah's form and what he's doing right now. And obviously completely different types of players. But it was one of those things that was rarely can you make the internet go crazy. And that was certainly one of them, you know?
I was so angry. I wanted to throw my phone. I thought, it's just young people being so dumb. I'm sorry. Mohamed Salah's incredible. Please, you did not.
Wait, wasn't it Ben White who said that he didn't watch? He was too busy playing soccer growing up that he didn't watch much. He's like, I know Patrick Vieira, but I wouldn't know anything about him. I know he was a good player, and that sort of those are the same people throwing up the Mo Salah argument right now.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, by the way, I want to know, everybody, because since we're talking such a global game here, Mohamed Salah, Ronaldinho, Jimmy's on the West Coast, so is Heath. I'm in New York. Des Norris and Florida. Where are you watching this from? If you're watching right now, please let us know. We just had Ilya, I believe. Apologies if I got your name wrong. You were from Somalia. I want to know where everybody's watching. It's really great.
Well, also, you have to add, who do you support?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
If it's Arsenal, we're going to make fun of you. I
mean, there was an Arsenal in there. I was saying that money eventually wins, and I knew what the pain that they were saying was.
Heath, if it's Arsenal, I'm shutting this whole thing. All right, let's keep going here, by the way, in the Premier League. All right, here we go. Losers of the weekend. Aston Villa had a 2-0 goal lead in the 80th minute, and we fell like a pancake in a cupboard. That's an English saying that nobody understands. And Wolves, listen, Adama Traore was a one-man wrecking machine, and he helped Wolves to come back from behind and win 3-2. So they win. But also Manchester United, everybody, the vibes of Manchester United, as James Bench likes to say, they lose 4-2 to Leicester City. So let's talk. We can go anywhere here. Jimmy, let's begin with you. Obviously, Villa losing 3-2 as they fall and crumble to Wolves, but also Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer continues to get the vote of confidence. My question is, why? What's going on? I mean, we've talked about this forever, but you can go anywhere here. But Man United losing 4-2. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know where to start here. I guess with Ole Gunnar and the manager. I mean, when you get the public vote of confidence and the owners come out, it's like the kiss of death. I mean, I just feel like they either haven't worked out the terms with whoever the next manager is going to be with, or they're not close yet, and they got to figure out what's going to happen and how they're going to make that transition. Anytime you see that, it's a red flag that things aren't going well. So it's almost like you don't want the public vote of confidence. If I was somebody like, hey, owners, don't if you're not liking me, just don't say you got my back. I don't want to see any of that in the papers. It's bad. But when I look at Manchester United, the whole Cristiano Ronaldo thing is interesting. I don't actually think he's good for the team. And that might come controversial or feel controversial or whatever. He's going to score his goals. He's going to have an impact in some capacity. He might raise the level of professionalism at the club. He might be a good role model for some of the younger players. But when it comes to getting out there and helping the tactics of kind of what they've already built, which included Jadon Sancho coming in and being very dynamic out on the wings, Ronaldo, I feel like in some ways this kind of gets in the way. And that feels really weird to say. Now, in some I don't know, parallel universe, if he had gone to City, I almost feel like he fits in better there because he can just be the big number 9. They maintain a lot of the ball.
Well, that's why they didn't let him go there.
Well, yeah, that's fair. So now you take that, though, and now you can't sub him off. Like, you have this Ole Gunnar, I feel like, is stuck now with Ronaldo that he might not have wanted. But of course, you don't want him to go to City. You don't want him to go to any of the competitors. He's a club legend. So you bring him back into the fold, and now you're kind of square peg, round hole. And now I think we're starting to see, yeah, it was great, and everybody wanted the nostalgia, but I don't know if he necessarily fits. And then if we look at the game overall, it's a bit of a microcosm because you had some great individual brilliance. The goal by Mason Greenwood, fantastic. But where is that consistent? And we talked about it before, that team dynamic. Like, how are they trying to get at you consistently? It still feels very individualistic. Marcus Rashford came off the bench and scored a great goal as well. But defensively, they only have had 1 clean sheet in their last 19 games.
Yeah.
And we could argue they gave up 4 goals, and David De Gea was the best player on the fields. So for them at least, and that's crazy to me. Until they get that kind of righted, I don't know they're going to win anything. And I actually tweeted out that I don't think Manchester United's going to win this season. I was hoping that they could possibly push for it, but after what I saw,
we were talking about it.
I just don't see it because they're not comprehensive on both sides of the ball. There's too many little vulnerabilities, and I don't know. I want to hear you guys' thoughts.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say is defensively, right? Harry Maguire, bad turnover, get punished. But then there was
that goal, by the way, though. Oh my God.
Unbelievable. You get punished for it. I get it. It's phenomenal. But the Matic turnover, he was slow in transition.
Yeah.
Pogba could have sprinted back, and there was slow in transition. But I look at just sort of that defensive 6, and I go back to, fortunately, we've moved away from comparing everybody or wanting every team to have. I'm blanking on his name now. Holding midfielder at Chelsea.
N'Golo Kante.
N'Golo Kante.
How could you ever forget his name, Heath?
Because all I've been thinking about is Ronaldinho since I brought him up earlier, and I can't get him off my mind. But N'Golo Kante type that's faster in transition, that understands that makes the game more predictable in ways that doesn't make it more complex, but actually makes it easier. And when I think about just the whole that is the transition game of Man United, it just seems like it can be 1 pass, it can be 5 passes, but eventually the other team is getting to the box very quickly against them, and they're very, very disorganized. And it seems like, okay, we can talk about Ronaldo, we can talk about Bruno Fernandes, and I still think with the 2 of them on the field, you're going to get brilliance, but you're going to get a lot of half chances, wasted buildups, things like that, where they both have this world-class ability to create magic. But if they're both trying to create magic from nothing, it's hard to find a rhythm. And I think we're not going to see the best of Jadon Sancho, which is why he's going to continue to be a bit part player, why Rashford's going to struggle to find the form as he comes back in, why Greenwood has moments of brilliance but still doesn't know where he needs to be. And I as Jimmy said, it's so many little pieces that I'm just like, if somebody was like, hey, you get 1 day to work with this team, focus on the back or focus on the attack, I don't know which one is the bigger problem with this team trying to go on this run towards winning a trophy. But for me, at a minimum, when you look at the quality that they have on offensively, and I know it's going to take a lot for them to score, I still say defensively, there's a problem. They need to shore that up. They can't keep giving up goals. If they're going to give up goals, they're never going to be able to compete. They're going to have to create too many individual moments of brilliance. The rest they can find a rhythm. They can learn to play together over time. But if you're giving up goals, you're never going to do that because each player is going to start thinking, oh man, I got to do a little bit more. I got to create a little bit more. And I think it's tough to find a cohesion or a team balance if you're wanting to do that.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm just going to add here, by the way, is like everybody just needs to remember before even Ronaldo came, okay? The biggest issue for Manchester United wasn't the goals. I mean, they have it. They can score it. Marcus Rashford, when he's healthy, Mason Greenwood, as we've mentioned, one of the best finishers out there, I think. It's about the fact that when they lose the ball, the moment they lose the ball, wherever it is on the pitch, they look lost. They look absolutely lost. That's why James Bench calls them vibes, because it's like they rely so much on individual brilliance. Bruno Fernandes was that good in January when he arrived, and he sort of like masqueraded a lot of the collective issues that Manchester United was having. To your point about how many goals they've conceded, Jimmy Conrad, they're not a good team. They're not. They're not well managed. And I think that really goes all the way. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a good man. I was a very big fan of watching him play during the 90s. I think he's a great man manager. Players like him, obviously. He is not the person for this job.
By the way, I just wanted to say one last thing on that. When they asked Pogba about it, one of the things he included in things that need to change is the tactics. He was like, we need blah, blah, blah. And then he threw tactics into the middle of that, where I'm like, oh, I think
that's a grenade. He rolled a grenade right into the room.
Yeah. And I, he was like kind of like energy. And I don't remember what the exact quote was. Maybe Des can find that, whatever he said after the game. But he threw tactics in there that needs to change. It was like things that need to change. And I was like, oh, okay. He's starting to poke and prod a little bit and Des and I were actually talking about it offline about how you bring in all these other players to do these things, but if you don't have the right system in place, if you don't have the right players in place to make Pogba better, because I complain about Pogba all the time, but I also don't think he's being put in the positions to be his best. If his job is to have to put out fires all the time defensively, is that really where you want a player like that? And so yeah, him making that jab, I'm like, oh man, that's I'm reading that in all caps.
I think Ole Gunnar, they've just reached a ceiling with him. This is as good as it's going to get with him as manager.
Yeah, this is the height.
And for a long time, he couldn't get past the semifinals, and now he finally got to a couple finals last season. I don't think he's a good enough manager to climb that mountaintop and get there. And I feel like they've given him more than enough time to figure that out. Obviously, he supplied him with more than enough players to figure that out. Not only did they give him that public backing, they said they'd give him 70 million in this transfer window to go kind of finalize that one last player. I'm like, okay, well, it better be Wilfred Ndidi or N'Golo Kante, or Franck Kessié potentially, because you need somebody who can just sit there and do that work so you can free up the Pogbas to do a little bit more and allow them to be a little bit more free going forward. I don't think they're too far away. There's still maybe one or two players and a manager away from really competing, but we'll see.
Luis, I got a question for you.
Which is a big need as well, by the way. By the way, if you're a Manchester United fan, please let us know. What do you think as well? And don't forget to keep commenting as well. And if you're listening on pods as well, make sure that you leave a review. You want to say something, Heath? Because Des did find that quote from you. Did you want to read it, Heath? Not the whole thing, but
I won't read the whole thing. But he says we need to change something. We need to find the mentality and tactics to win. We have to look at this and individuals and as a team to fix that. So it's kind of like, hey, we'll take some blame, but you need to take some blame. But Luis, the question that I wanted to ask you guys is, we talk about how he's reached this point. The sad part about this is when you go from interim to manager to this, like if there was a plan in place for the handing off of the baton of, like, we know he's going to take it to a certain point, right? When you looked at the Brendan Rodgers handoff to Jurgen Klopp, I don't know if that was a project that led to the next point, but I think they saw a ceiling there. At a certain point, people were saying, yeah, but his record is worse than Brendan Rodgers was at this point after 50 games or whatever it was that they were comparing him. But it seemed like there was this progress, right? And so that you can look at Brendan Rodgers' time and say, hey, that was successful getting it to a point. Would you say that this is successful getting it to the point in terms of where it's at? Or is it just something that's not working and it needs something new? I mean, is this...
the only thing that I'm going to say here, right, is that because I've read comments about United fans saying, look what happened with the Klopp and how like they gave him time and all that stuff. Klopp came in with an identity. You know exactly what you're getting with Jurgen Klopp. That's why it took time, because those players were like, we need to figure it out. And once they did, it's heavy metal football. You get it. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't have that kind of identity.
He's also had 5 windows.
And a lot of windows.
And you know what? It's not even Solskjaer's fault. Everything changed when they beat PSG in the Champions League that time. And he got a new contract and everything changed. And Pochettino was still available. I'm not saying that he would have been the one, but at least Manchester United, the reason why they were so good in the 90s, you knew what the hell they were about. And that's what Manchester United need to do again. And they need a manager that comes in. Honestly, like, it's not going to happen. But Antonio Conte coming in and saying, we are Manchester United. This is what we're going to do. You don't lose the ball like that. And if you do, you kill yourself to get it back. And that's not the identity that they have with that. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Just really quick. I have a personal story that ties into this, because one of my daughters is playing youth soccer and they're playing a couple times, training a couple times a week. And then when I watch the games and I'm going like, what are they working on all week? Like, what's the plan here? Defensively, attacking wise, in transition, both with or without the ball. Like, I don't know.
Okay, psycho dad. Okay,
No,
psycho dad.
I don't
Jeez,
say
huh?
anything.
Go
I'm
sit in
just
your
saying-
car. Stop yelling at everyone.
I don't yell at anybody, you idiot. Listen, what I'm saying is I think Man United fans look at the same thing and they look at the field and like, what do you guys work on all week? Why isn't there a plan? Why are you giving up goals? You only have one clean sheet in the last 19 games.
Yeah, that's not
What
good.
are you doing? And then on the attacking side of the ball, why is this so hard? We have so many talented players, both old and young. Why can't we figure this out? So I'm frustrated for United fans, and I'm the other United fan, and I'm suffering as well, but I get it in a different way.
Yeah, well, there it is. By the way, don't forget to keep going with those comments. We're going to take a quick break. If you're watching this on YouTube, that means that we literally take half a second break, and then we come back. On podcast is a full-on commercial, so you can take a pause and everything. But we'll be right back. And when we come back, by the way, Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga, and some final thoughts as well with Heath Pearce and Jimmy Conrad. Weekend recap. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, I told you we'll be back if you're watching on YouTube, and we're right here. Amazing, right? We just pop up. We never left. But thank you for being part of this family. All right, let's move on. Let's leave the UK, like UK left Europe, and let's go to Serie A. Juventus, Roma. Tammy Abraham did start. There were a few worries because he picked up a knock in the international break, but he did start. But Moise Kean scored. Chesney saved a penalty. That means that Juventus beat Roma, and Mourinho with a nice little pat on the head of Allegri, I think I saw, by the way. So let's go with you first, Heath Pearce. Juventus beats Roma. Mourinho loses to Allegri. Juventus, they got their mojo back? I was a little worried that the international break was going to pause them, but this is a big win.
Yeah, I think that's 4 in a row now in the league. It's a huge win. I think it's a definitive win for them. Obviously, a scrappy result. And the thing about Juventus, if you look at their team, it's they got a lot of old people. So it wasn't like they had a whole bunch of them. Yeah, look at that. That's it's fantastic. Oh, gosh, Mourinho, would you want him at Newcastle? Okay, Jimmy, we can't go back.
He did talk. He did. Yeah. Well, he did talk about. But let's talk about Juventus first.
Not yet. Not
yet. Okay. Yeah. Look, I think Juventus, they're on to a rhythm. They obviously have the quality, have the experience, and a belief that let the good times roll type of thing, and they're proving that now. I don't think it's necessarily a recipe for success that's going to put them as a challenger for the league. But it's certainly starting to kind of kill some of the criticisms of the post Ronaldo era and just the sort of the disbelief of what they're going through. I think there's still a lot of changes that need to happen into the team. I think they need to make some signings. I think hopefully they have that in the upcoming 2 transfer windows. If not January, then in the upcoming summer, to be able to just bring some life to the team or sell some of their players that are still young that they could get some money for if they're not part of the plans. But overall, they put on a strong team, and against the Roma side that Tammy Abraham, who we didn't expect to play, it played. And for Juventus, it's just about continuing to get results. I don't see an identity. I don't see a belief. I don't see something that tells me overwhelmingly that they're going to make a comeback in the league or go unbeaten for the rest of the year. But overall, it's got to be a huge win for a team that's looking for an identity right now.
Yeah, I'd jump in and say that I think Chesney needed a big game. I thought he's been kind of shaky in goal for Juve, and him having a big moment, saving a penalty, making a couple other big saves, getting some heroic defending from Chiellini and Bonucci, which I feel like we've been saying that for the last 15 years with those two guys, probably because it's true. They have been going for 15 or so years, and they just have a nice blend. I think what's really interesting about Juventus is that Allegri has now found his groove of winning kind of ugly. And Roma had a better XG in this one. They had, I think, 2 to 1.5. So they just didn't finish their opportunities. But what I like about this Roma team is they didn't sit back. They tried to be the protagonist. They tried to make some things happen. They were trying to be on the front foot, and there was some urgency there that I appreciate, because sometimes when you have a Jose Mourinho team, and I know there's a lot of clubs out there that can speak to that when he's been their manager, it doesn't always feel like they attack with numbers. It's always, 2 or 3. There's not that big commitment to go forward. And now we're seeing a little bit more 5 and 6. And maybe because he's a little bit more relaxed in Serie A, I don't know. But I still feel like the future is pretty bright for Roma. And this shouldn't discourage the fans in any way. As conversely with Juve, this is just another sign that Allegri's starting to get, I think, his team to buy into it's okay to win ugly. We just got to get some results. And at some point, we're going to have that that moment of time, we'll start to establish our rhythm going forward in a more meaningful way. They've got the players. Now they just got to figure it out. And to Heath's point, maybe they can find a change or two in the January transfer window to continue to help them in that transition. But, you know, even without Morata starting, you know, Moise Kean didn't know much about that header, but he claims the goal anyway. Chiesa, maybe not his best game, but he's still always very, very dangerous. It's going to be interesting. And I don't know. I think both of these teams are obviously in a shout for the top four, but if I look at Serie A overall, I feel like AC Milan is the big winner. I mean, Napoli won again, super impressive 1-0 win. Victor Osimhen scored in the 82nd minute.
8 wins from 8 there, yeah.
Unbelievable, completely on fire. We can get into them in a little bit, but Milan coming back from 2-0 down against Hellas Verona to score 3 goals in the last 15 minutes. You have Giroud and Zlatan on the field at the same time. You love to see that, right? So there's something about Milan I like as well, but I think they benefit the most from Inter and Roma both losing in this one. They've started to create a little bit of a gap, as you can see there with the standings. So some big wins. You know, Lazio obviously getting a win over Inter is important. Atalanta scoring 4, you know, and starting to welcome Luis Muriel back in a more meaningful way as he starts to get back into top health. So I love this league is super competitive, and I'm glad it's on Paramount Plus because I feel like we get even more and more insight on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Only 10 points separate number 1 Napoli and 7 Juventus. And to your point about the race for the top 4 is even tighter as well. By the way, have you guys changed your mind at all on who's winning Serie A? Heath, I'm sticking with AC Milan, but Napoli, 8 wins from 8. They seem they are right now unstoppable.
It's one of those things where my belief is going up. This was around the time of year last year where we started to analyze AC Milan. And saying, like, could they actually do it? And I was still a believer that AC Milan were going to run away with it. Obviously, circumstances changed based on Europe, and we saw Inter Milan just hit their form, get knocked out of Europe completely, and just the perfect storm to run away. That I'm looking at Napoli going, man, circumstantially, you know, how are they going to make it? It's a long way, right? They're on an absolute tear, but I don't see them head and shoulders above an AC Milan or an Inter Milan at the moment. So I worry about the longevity of that with a couple of injuries coming to Napoli or a tough spell if they can squeak that out. We saw AC Milan start to fall apart in the spring of last year when I just thought, man, these guys are unstoppable in a lot of ways. And so I still believe AC Milan are the team that I want to hold on for this season. But again, I hope Napoli prove me wrong because it would be great dramatics for Serie A.
Yeah, I have Inter Milan. That was my pick. I don't know. I guess I'm on the fence as to whether they can do it or not. It's still very early. They do have the players to do it. They just have to tighten things up defensively. And I think that's where Napoli only conceded 2 goals so far in 8 games is super impressive. Yeah. And it's you know, we've talked about balance and a lot of these teams that they have success. So they're good on both sides of the ball. And right now that's what you're seeing from Napoli. And Victor Osimhen, he had 10 goals and 3 assists last season. Excuse me, just 10 goals in 20-plus games last year and had a little bit of an injury. Never really felt completely settled under Gattuso, but did score the odd goal. But now you can see him both in European competition and domestically. 7 goals. He's got 5 goals in 7 games, 2 assists already. I mean, and now stepping up and scoring match winners late in games. I mean, it's just, you can see him taking on more responsibility, feeling more comfortable in the system, and that he's got a manager in Spalletti that really knows how to put him in good spots to have success. And if they can stay healthy, I think they're going to be there till the very end. It's just a matter of whether they can, you know, manage it in the last month when things get really tight. And that's where that experience that Inter Milan gained last year and where Juve's had for the last decade. They know how to win those tight games at the very end to go on to win the Scudetto.
Yeah, Victor Osimhen, 22 years old, doing his thing.
Unreal.
Yeah, a very good point, by the way. Yes, that's right. The African Cup of Nations in January, beginning of January until February. So you'll miss a few stars there. So they'll have, but that's every club with major African players has to deal with that headache. All right, let's go to Spain, La Liga. Some games, by the way, were postponed to CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers, which you know, it's a tricky situation here because I don't think it's something that the Spanish Federation approved of. It's more like the actual La Liga requested it, but Granada and Atleti was postponed. Real Madrid and Athletic Bilbao was postponed, but Barcelona win 3-1 against Valencia. That was the Serginho Dest against Yunus Musa game right here. By the way, before we get into the game with Barcelona, and I talk to these guys about it, and if you're a Barcelona fan, make sure that you drop in a comment and a question. But there was also a very important meeting that was meant to happen today, obviously their AGM, where obviously Barcelona being run and co-led by the members of the club, etc. There was, it's a very important meeting. We're talking about, over 4,000 of them trying to see if they will approve Joan Laporta's basic message and request of all the things that need to happen in order for Barcelona to finally get out of debt. 1.4 billion, by the way, in debt. One of the things that he wants to do is get another loan from Goldman Sachs, by the way. That's one thing he wants
to do.
Yeah,
as
exactly. You do. The other, and that's necessary for a major project that they want to do, which is renovate Nou Camp, because it's an absolute, it's breaking down camp now. So they need to fix that. They want to also, just basically renovate the entire thing and do a lot of things in order to get out of the financial nightmare that they're in. And he needs their approval. He can't just do it. But that meeting was suspended because obviously there's a game going on and Barcelona had to play against Valencia and they win 3-1. Ansu Fati scores. He wins a penalty. Yeah, very good goal. A Messi-esque goal, I would say. I think.
I agree.
Sergio Agüero as well. He came in. His competitive debut for Barcelona. Serginho Dest played well as well, but Yunus Musa was caught napping in that Coutinho goal as well. So talk to me about Barcelona, Jimmy Conrad. What do you make of it?
Yeah, still a dumpster fire in my humble opinion. Serginho Dest, what I'll say is that they put him out high up on the wing. They clearly saw how much success I assume he was having with the U.S. men's national team and put him in his
literally
spot.
Playing in Messi's position.
He is, which is crazy. and he had an assist today, and he was busy. He was in and around the ball, and that's incredible to think about, that we have an American international playing Messi's old position at Barcelona. I can't even believe those words are escaping my lips. So that's cool. I thought it was a good performance from Barcelona. They went down early as well, so. You get the fans, but Jose Gaya scored an amazing goal for Valencia. Sometimes when you're a team that's away from home, you score that early, you're like, God, we got to hold the lead for 85 minutes, and that's always tough. And Ansu Fati scored 8 minutes later, and it was a fantastic goal. Right. And his future is incredibly bright. Memphis Depay, Gaya actually got called for the penalty. I thought he got to the ball first before he got Ansu Fati. But Barcelona at the camp now, yeah, all right, you're going to give it to them. They're struggling right now. So they get one right before half, and I think that changed the game a little bit. But it was great. When Musa did come in, even though he was sleeping, they put him in central mid. Another reflection of maybe his success with the men's national team, that maybe Musa's best spot is not out on the wing where they have him out sometimes under Jose Bordalas at Valencia, but maybe more central. So I hope he gets more minutes there because I think that's his future with the men's national team.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And the thing that I wanted to say, by the way, is the delegates for that vote, LME, were still going to sit down when they got scored on. I was reading a report.
They were all in the room. Yeah. It was all ready to happen.
Yeah, which is wild. Like they were still like getting settled in when they got scored upon, and that might swing some of the decisions. But yeah, I think Jimmy did a great job of giving an example. I think especially from the American side. A unique look into what these players might be able to do. Even Serginho Dest, actually the argument of saying Yunus Musa into the central midfield. What can Serginho Dest do for us as a national team if he's playing high and wide? You couldn't really argue against the guy if he's going to play every game at the winger spot for Barcelona, that he wouldn't be a starter for the U.S. men's national team.
Could you imagine all this time we've been talking about Serginho Dest as an outside back, and he's going to plan to play in winger?
No, we've been talking about him as a 60 minute a game outside back, which is unheard of, where you get 60 and then you sub him out because you need somebody to defend.
Hey, Heath, is he better than Ronaldinho, Serginho Dest?
Yeah. Yes, without saying. I mean, what do we? Hey, that's not even a conversation.
Luis, you tweet that, and then I'll quote tweet you my answer. Okay, you say it, and then I'll follow up on it.
I will not tweet that. But I want every Barcelona fan, please, if you're watching, to give us a comment just on your club. We'd love to just see what you think. Is it getting easier for you to deal with all this mayhem, or is it still horrible? Well, let's keep talking about La Liga for a second, because Rayo Vallecano continues to stick around for a Champions League spot as well. They're doing their thing. And also, by the way, Real Sociedad are worth a mention. Again, they're doing the same thing that happened last season. They're starting very well, and then obviously they dropped a little bit. What do you make of that?
I just think they're well organized. I think that their manager, Alguacil, I hope Sil is what I'm saying, Emmanuel Alguacil. That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
And I just think they're really well balanced. And then you have players that are performing, and they're very good at home. And even though they got a red card in this one against Mallorca, You got Alexander Isak up top, who didn't have the best game, but still is busy. He's going to create space with his runs and his mere presence. And the Porto came in for Oyarzabal. Oyarzabal has been very, very good for both club and country this particular season. Mikel Moreno is sick. Janase, for all you Man United fans, Janase plays a role for La Real as well. And then just in the back, they've just been very good and solid and complete. And they're just a team that has, we saw this with La Real last season, where they started off pretty hot. They did well in the Europa League, and then they started to hit that spot where they couldn't score goals, and their defense couldn't keep up, giving up barely, trying to get clean sheets every game to survive.
Yeah, look how tight that is, by the way.
Yeah, it's really tight. But they've only given up 7 goals so far this season. They're not scoring a lot either. So that's my big fear, is that when you look at their goal difference, it's a little bit different from the bigger clubs, and it's going to be harder for them to maintain, because you can't walk that fine line of 1-0s your way to the title. It's really hard to do.
I would love to know where they are where they were after 10 games last season as well, because they were somewhere up there.
I agree. They were
in the top 2 or 3 for a good amount of time. And again, when I think back about Napoli, obviously completely different level of size of club in terms of underperforming or overperforming expectations, just how long of a season it is that a couple results, when you have other clubs in Serie A or La Liga that are going to go on these long runs of 5-6 games unbeaten, and what that means points wise, that you can quickly drop into a Europa League or a conference spot.
I found it for you. They were first after week 13. Last season.
There you go.
They were in first for 7 of the first 13 weeks, and then week 13
they were killing it.
And then they dropped all the way down to 7th by week 31. So
it's
tough.
Here's a random question. I know you guys are covering this another thing, but I just wanted to get your takes on this. Would you rather be Atletico Madrid, who has a game postponed, right, effectively resting, or would you rather be a Liverpool in the form that they're in, coming off of a week and going into a midweek clash? Who has the advantage? Rest?
Well, that's a good question for
international
our
break. International break, right? You're coming back. You get a rare moment of rest, which nobody gets, or you get the form of like, hey, we'll take on anybody right now because we're hitting from all angles.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I mean, Atleti came into the international break with their 2-0 win over Barcelona. They had beaten Milan. It was 2-1 in Milan. I think a draw was a fair result there. But I think it's better to have a game, to be honest. And they could go try to find some friendly or play amongst themselves in an inter-squad game or whatever. But there's something about, cutting your teeth a little bit. And I think that Liverpool benefited from not having a difficult opponent. Not to say that Granada isn't a difficult opponent, but it's just been nice to kind of get those reps to kind of figure out, coming out of the international break, who's healthy, who can I rely on now that we got Liverpool, who's going to chase Mo Salah the whole game, and then conversely, who's going to chase Sadio Mane, and then a red hot Bobby Firmino. These are all these questions that now he has to wait to see the answers during the game, and I think that's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna completely agree with you, and I'd love to hear what the viewers have to say as well on that one. And by the way, when you face a team like Liverpool, or when you face a team like Atletico Madrid, you need your reps, because you're going to have to deal with a lot. They're not somebody that likes to sit. They're going to be in your face. So you better be match ready. All right, let's move on here to the Bundesliga. So fun, Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen, they're trying to, the winner of Bayer Leverkusen and Bayern Munich was going to go top of the Bundesliga. And, Bayer Leverkusen feeling good in 3rd place at the beginning of the day, thinking they're going to do their thing. Oh, it's halftime, 5-0 to Bayern Munich. The game ends up 5-1 to Bayern Munich, and they jump top of the table. Borussia Dortmund won on Saturday. Incredible stuff. First of all, I mean, Heath, that's just ridiculous stuff. I mean, sometimes it's enough to fire a manager after a result like that.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at just how good, and the problem with Leverkusen right now is just how young they are, right? Their biggest contributor is still Florian Wirtz, who's got 4 goals and 6 assists in the league. He's 18 years old. Patrick Schick, 25. He's got 7 goals. He's their leading goal. Moussa Diaby, 22, 4 goals and an assist in the league. Like they've still got a lot of youth within all that, but it's a pretty embarrassing result when you're that size of any kind, right? We are going after Bochum when they had the 7-0. And Bochum's supposed to get battered by Bayern Munich, right? But you're talking about Leverkusen, a team that plays Europe consistently, a team that has national team players across the board.
And we're going to go top of the Bundesliga if they won this game.
And I mean, that's a statement win for Bayern Munich, obviously. But yeah, overall, it just shows you the disparity. But and I don't give any I don't want to give too much credit to Bayern Munich, because you can put a third Bundesliga team against Bayern Munich in the cup, and you can go a half without getting scored on. You can at least give up a couple goals, and just that mentality and fight. It just showed that there's some vulnerabilities in that team. But yeah, again, maybe this is a result of coming off of the international break. I don't know, but that's embarrassing. That's personal when you get to that point going in at halftime.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say that prior to this game, Lewandowski hadn't scored in 2 straight Bundesliga games, which is that's a slump for that guy, you know? So for him to then get in and score 3 minutes in, it's like the last thing you want. You want to frustrate him and not let him get into the flow and get that confidence going again. Yeah. So I thought Bayer Leverkusen in particular didn't come out with the right attitude. I don't think they were set up very well because they had 2 somewhat attacking players in their double pivot. They have Demirbay and Amiri who okay, Demirbay will sit a little bit, but he wears the number 10 shirt, okay? And then you got Amiri who likes to be out on the he just likes to run, you know, and he'll be out on the wing or he'll come inside. And it just felt like I appreciate the swashbuckling attitude that you're at home. And you know what? We're going to go toe-to-toe with these suckers. But I don't know if you try to go toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich. I think you have to be a little bit more pragmatic in your approach. And it's kind of funny. It doesn't matter who manages them or who plays on their team. They have the nickname Bayern Leverkusen because they never win anything. And so this just shows another piece of evidence that, yeah, they have the talent and you can see their potential, but they never realize it because they just can't win the big games.
By the way, they gave up a goal at home in the 4th minute. This game was at home for Leverkusen.
I know,
which is absurd. You give up a goal in 4th minute. Usually you settle back into the game. At least you have home. You have whatever. But this was just a complete meltdown and almost like a naivety to think that, oh yeah, we'll just play wide open. And then, you know, Mr. Lewandowski bags on you a second one, and then you realize, okay, it's going to be a long day. And they don't learn from those mistakes.
They were second to everything, though. You know what I mean? It's just like they were just second to everything. And there was one goal in particular. I watched it and broke it down, and they actually did good pressing. But then it ended up, I think, on the second or third goal, and they tried to high press, and they were second to every single pass. 15 passes later, it's in the back of their goal. Like it's embarrassing. And if that had happened in MLS, honestly, be like, oh, this is why I don't watch MLS. Well, this happens at the highest levels all over the place.
It happens to the U.S. men's national team away. I'll tell you that much. They arrive. they arrive always, but late to those.
Hey, at least you arrived. Peru doesn't even show up. All right, hey everybody, we had a poll, by the way. If you could only make one signing, because we're talking about best players in the world and what leagues they play in, etc. If you could only make one signing, who would you choose? Robert Lewandowski, Mohamed Salah, or Karim Benzema? And here we go, Mohamed Salah. I do believe, though, that maybe that's just because
he's hot, red hot.
Liverpool, first of all, they probably have a bigger American fan base. I don't know. What do you think? And they just they're watching this. Well, Bayern Munich fans in Germany are probably asleep. I don't know. But I think I agree right now. I just think of everything that Mohamed Salah. The problem is like you got to also decide like what team specifically are they going for. But what do you think, Heath? Who would you go for?
I'm going with. I actually think I'm going to go with the 5%er there, Karim Benzema. This guy is so good, and he continues to be good. He continues to be good through all the changes. Like Robert Lewandowski's been the guy at Bayern Munich all of this time, right? And he was at Dortmund as well. But like he's been the guy, and he continues to deliver on that. I think he should be your multi-Ballon d'Or winner for sure. But Karim Benzema, despite controversy, despite the pressure, despite everything like that, continues to score. And I think he's got a bad rep for his off the field that I don't think will ever give him the credit that he deserves on the field. So I want to go. I think the easy answer is obviously Mohamed Salah. If I'm building for the future of a team, but I just see him down there at 5%. And I go, gosh, dude, this is going to be one of these guys that goes down in history, underserved or underloved, even though he continues to year after year after year, despite who you bring in or who leaves the club, carry the club on his back under immense pressure. And so I got to give him credit for that.
No, I agree with Heath. I mean,
really?
Well, no, I wouldn't go with him. I guess it depends. To your point, Luis, who is he surrounded by?
Right.
Because Mo Salah is a winger, and he needs to pick up the ball and not have to drop all the way back to get it.
All right, so let me bring it like this, Jimmy. To you, let me bring it like this.
If you're Newcastle, you get all of them. You get all of them in this window, Jimmy. You get all of them.
No, each team has like everything they need except that specific, position. So Mohamed Salah, Lewandowski, and Karim Benzema. Who would it be?
I honestly, in terms of consistent production, I would probably go with Lewandowski, just because the number 9's position is so important. if you didn't have a Mo Salah, I still think Liverpool could survive and still compete. But when Lewandowski's not in that Bayern team, when you know they have pretty complete team all around them, they just suffer. And we saw that in the Champions League not too long ago, or 2 seasons ago. With Karim Benzema, though, I just felt like if you're starting the team from scratch, you need somebody to kind of carry your team and do all the work and score all the big goals. He seems to be the guy that seems to step up, no matter, to Heath's point, no matter who's on this team.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
I don't know.
You're both insane. It's Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, obviously.
Listen, I appreciate the guy. I love the guy, but I'm just saying that it just kind of, there's so many like variations and variables.
Don't take the easy answer. Let's go, man. Let's go.
It's a conversation. It's a podcast.
That's an easy that was an easy answer.
The easy answer is the correct
Salah.
answer.
He said, yeah, that is true. You know, sometimes the answer is right in front of you, you know.
I do want to move it, though, to somebody that we like on this show, but really, I'm counting the days here, to be honest. Freiburg and Leipzig draw 1-0. Nothing really is going right here for Jesse Marsch, Heath. What do you make of this? How long does he have? Is the clock ticking, or are they, I'm just worried about him.
I don't know, man. Like, it must be ticking. And I think New York Red Bulls are an example of the Red Bull family not being afraid to make changes and wholesale changes over time. And as I went back to think about, like, yeah, he's part of the family. He's raised in the system. He's gone from one to the next. It all makes sense. If you're not getting the results at a club like that, they have the ability to make those changes. So I feel like his freedom is kind of disappearing now. And I think that you start to look at it and you go, hey, okay, it's 1 game. Okay, it's 2. Is there something here? Okay, injuries. Maybe you look at it internally. You don't think it's a big deal. But now you're starting to see, like, hey, this team's struggling, period, to get results. And so I think you have to start questioning, is this the guy? And I do want to point out that RB Leipzig have historically overperformed expectations, right? They've overperformed the money that they spend. The system has worked, and it's been one of those, probably sweep it under the rug type things where sometimes you get away with results and you run on adrenaline, you run on kind of good vibes for a while. And I think they're going through that now. It just unfortunately sucks that Jesse Marsch is at the helm of that club, and it may cost him his job. And certainly not a great look for the respect for American managers that we want to come in there and, to follow up, managers or predecessors who have been successful. It's a tough position to be in. They also haven't gotten the signings. They haven't gotten any of the normal quality of players. It'd be nice if they had a Patrick Schick there. Or Schick
it's
there.
It's a perfect storm, basically.
It's a lot of those things. And I don't want to make excuses. I am a little bit biased towards Jesse Marsch and the success I want to see him have. But I don't know how long you get considering how big of a club you would consider RB Leipzig at this point.
Yeah, I want to throw a couple caveats there. They're on a 4-game unbeaten streak in the league. They've got 2 wins and 2 draws in the last 4. They're taking on Freiburg, 4th place right now, the only team in the Bundesliga yet to lose a game. And they've only given up 3 goals at home all season. So he's away from home against a team that has a pretty good identity about who they are and what they're about.
But they're poor in the Champions League too. They lost their last Champions League in the middle of all that.
I get that. And I think that has to be taken into consiration. And what I
would
group,
add, by the way, sorry, it's a terrible group for them to be in, but like,
of course it is. But it's and I think their form in European competition will maybe dictate, like, getting that 3rd place spot so they can get into the Europa League. I assume is of the utmost importance, especially because they have PSG and Man City in their group. So 3rd place, when you're running RB Leipzig and you see that group, you're like, all right, we have to at least lock down 3rd place. So that's going to be the big challenge for him. I'm not too worried. I was worried there for a while where they weren't getting results. They have a lot of talent, and when I look at like goal difference in the league, they got +8. And that's the same as Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund's just turned a few of those losses, or on the precipice of being a loss and a draw, into a win because somebody's stepping up and making a play, either on the defensive side of the ball or on the attacking side of the ball. And they're not getting enough of that. Andre Silva, we could argue, has been a bit of a flop. The guy scored 27, 28 goals in the Bundesliga last season for Eintracht Frankfurt. I think he only has 1 in the run of play, and the other one's a penalty. So it's just, he's not firing on all cylinders. Already back to Yusuf Poulsen being the guy up top. So I still feel like they're trying to figure out who their best 11 is. I think the identity's there, but who the best 11 is. And he's got to lock that down soon. If he can't figure that out, to Heath's point, they're going to find somebody else to figure it out instead.
Well, next up is PSG, and they get a result. Maybe
that's right. Everything changes.
Well, that's why they lost.
As Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will let you know, anything changes if you beat PSG. All right, this is the end of our recap. But before we go, I would love final thoughts. Jimmy Conrad, final thoughts, buddy.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Johan Vasquez, a Mexican international, 22-year-old, scored the game-tying goal for Genoa today. He's a center back defender. He's got 2 caps to the Mexican national team, and I just thought it was a cool moment for him, and just wanted to give him a shout out. And to the Red Bulls, they had a big win over NYCFC to even them on points, which is pretty cool as they fight for one of the last playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. So a couple shout outs to some North American clubs and players.
I love it. Heath?
Yeah, my shout outs are similar in the sense that I want to give a shout out to Zach Steffen, who got a start in the Premier League.
That's awesome.
In their win, which
clean sheet.
I think is huge. They're obviously listening to the Que Golazo pod, where we're arguing who should be the number 1. And if Zach Steffen's not playing, how could he be the number 1?
He's a friend of the Que Golazo.
Yeah.
He was on it,
So I think there's some legitimate arguments to that. And then obviously, the other shout out is to LAFC and LA Galaxy, both getting huge wins over the weekend as they are on their quest in the Western Conference to make a playoff spot. That the Western Conference is now heating up, so make sure you're paying attention to that. And that's my final thoughts.
I love it. I'm just gonna give a shout out to David Ginola. If you remember him, he was on Sky Sports as part of his punditry for Newcastle Tottenham, and he said some great things about, just things that's, they're obvious, but they need to be heard. He was very honest about and open about defibrillators being in stadiums, but also about how everybody should really at some point really try and learn CPR. You will never know when you might need to use it.
Well, he collapsed. He was one that was
right. He was talking from personal experience.
CPR for 12 minutes on him until they were able to get him that. And again, going back to that point, that education is super important.
Totally. He was talking from personal experience. Absolutely right there. But Heath Pearce, thank you so much, my man, and Jimmy Conrad as well. But Heath, thank you, Heath.
Thank you very much.
Jimmy, thank you, brother.
Money solves all problems. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Go Newcastle.
Everybody, thank you so much. Make sure to catch our Champions League Match Day 3 preview, which will be available on Monday in audio and video form. We recommend consuming both for the full immersive experience. And you guessed it, we'll be going live after Tuesday and Wednesday's games for more reactionary fun like this one. Be part of the conversation with us in the comments section. Thank you for watching or listening. Follow Que Golazo Podcast on Twitter, Que Golazo Pod. Subscribe to the Que Golazo page on YouTube and hit that notification bell. And of course, subscribe to Que Golazo wherever you get your podcasts. And just keep saying Que Golazo. It's a great thing to say. If you get a good dinner tonight, Que Golazo. It's the best thing ever. But thank you so much, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye-bye. Have a great night.